Right, guys, welcome back to the podcast, episode 34 of the show. Have we? We're recording this in December. Have we still got the Christmas tree in the picture, in the shot?
Still got the Christmas tree in the shot.
You can do, yeah. I just noticed it then and just leave it in. It's all good stuff. While you're doing that, yeah, come in, Tyler. Come in, get it out. It's all good.
Yeah, just cut the Christmas tree out.
Add it for the blooper reel. We'll carry on.
Bye,
Regardless.
Christmas tree. Oh, God, the Christmas tree's killing me. Let me unplug the Christmas tree as well.
This is all good. All good stuff.
Classic.
So while this is going on, let's introduce our guest for today's
Cheers, Tyler.
show, which is Dan Glyde, joining us all the way from Scotland, I believe.
Yeah, up in the hills in the Scottish borders in the middle of nowhere.
Nice. How are you, Dan? You okay?
Yeah, I've got a bit of lurgy, but other than that, good as gold. Thank you.
Fantastic. So yeah, so this one we're going to be airing this in the new year. So
I'm here as well, Alex.
hi, mate.
Wow.
So let's dive straight in. So I won't kind of steal the thunder of the topic of the podcast because that'll be kind of given away in the title. But Dan, if you could kind of label or sort of shoehorn your role, what you do, what your business is, how would you do that?
So yeah, I run two businesses, but I guess the one that we're going to talk about today is it's a men's community, really. That's what it's turned into. It started off as one-on-one coaching business. Then I started a WhatsApp group, and that's grown massively, and that's now morphed into a mastermind. We meet once a month online for an hour. Yeah, and I still do one-on-one work with guys. I'm a peak performance coach.
A peak performance coach. Cool.
The once a month thing. What do you discuss? What is that for? Is that just people that just want to sound out a bit, or what's that once a month?
Peak performance without burnout. It's business owners and leaders, entrepreneurs, busy professionals, blokes who lead with integrity, who want to be the best versions of themselves. And it's a mastermind because we all bring something to the table. So it's not group coaching.
Yeah.
And we tackle something every month that stops us from being the best version of ourselves. That means we're not able to prioritize our well-being.
So what kind of thing would that be? What kind of topics have you been discussing, like the last couple that you've done? Just give us.
So the last one we did was how to be unaffected by the opinion of others. We've also covered assumptions, procrastination.
I tell you what, that first one would be good for me because I worry too much about everyone else's perception.
Yeah, just holds you back, stops you from being who you want to be and living how you want to live. And it's none of your business what people think of you.
Facts. So I mean, what kind of got you into that line of work, Dan? What got you going? What were it that kind of piqued that interest?
I burnt out, Alex, back in 2018. So I used to work in broadcasting. I worked for the BBC for nearly 20 years, and I turned into a massive people pleaser. I had a really bad mindset. I had zero boundaries, said yes to everything. I mean, I work for BBC Sport, and it's long and unsociable hours because all the sport obviously happens at evenings and weekends, right? And I used to work weeks on end without days off. I didn't rest to recuperate properly. And I allowed myself to be exploited, and I ran myself into the floor because I didn't really sleep properly. I've always looked after myself well physically. And then when burnout arrived, I was overweight. I had no energy. My skin was bad. My digestion was bad. I had constant headaches, like tension headaches and stress headaches. And massive panic attack sat on my doorstep one evening, pulled me up a bit lively and made me realize that the way I was living wasn't sustainable. And I've been rebuilding myself ever since then. And I've now completely changed my life and my lifestyle. As I said, I live in the middle of nowhere now. My life's peaceful and quiet. And I work smart instead of working hard.
So what, I mean, does that tend to be the kind of thing that you see coming through into the groups, into these monthly meetings? Is it like-minded people that are kind of experiencing the same thing, or do you kind of see it across the piece, various different things?
So, I mean, there's lots of reasons why people come into my world. Mostly it's because they feel stuck, they're stressed and frustrated, they're somewhere on the curve of burnout. They know they're meant for more. They know that they could live differently, but they don't really know where to start or how to do it. They're busy following society's rules and the path society lays down to success. And a lot of them get there. They have the house, the car, the job, everything, great holidays, eat out in nice restaurants, but they feel like shit.
That's interesting what you touched on there, Dan, because you mentioned societal expectations. What? How would you expand on that? What does societal expectations of
So,
the
Alex,
modern
what
man?
happened to me was when I burnt out, and as part of my rebuilding and getting really into my own self-development, I realized that a lot of what had happened to me was me trying to fit into what I call the man box. So for kickoff, I developed a persona, a caricature of myself. I wasn't being myself. I was being a version of myself that I thought the world would find acceptable. And part of that was being tough, repressing my emotions and my feelings, burying them, escaping them and avoiding them, thinking they were of no use to me. Wearing stress and pressure like a badge of honor, pushing on through, internalizing everything, never ever admitting even to myself that I was struggling, let alone tell anybody else. And when I look back now, I was suffering from chronic anxiety probably for about a decade. I had bouts of depression. I didn't really even know it. I just thought it was normal. I thought this is what happens when you're, in a high-powered competitive environment and you have a successful career. And yeah, I used to think it was clever turning up still half drunk after 2 hours sleep and working on the BBC's busiest football programme.
Is that kind of that sort of mindset, what you've just kind of, the man box, is that what you see in a lot of the gents that come to the group? So they kind of all, if not all of those things, but they all kind of pull similar traits, or if not all of them.
No, I mean, and it shows up differently for different people, right? There are some people who try and fit in the man box and they then think that they're somehow less than, or there's something wrong with them because they don't live up to that. So they shrink and hide from the world. Other people do what I do and create these false personas and bravado and get obsessed with status and hierarchy and stuff. And the more you do that, the less you are being yourself. And every single man that comes into my community or comes to work with me does so because they want to be themselves and they're not being.
Dan, going back to when you recognised it yourself, and you were obviously at fast pace and you were working up, did you recognise that other gents around you at the time where you were going,
yeah, exactly,
you're the same as me?
Yeah, and that's why I ended up coaching men, which is probably the hardest niche to try and launch a business. Loads of people tell me when I first started, "Oh, you'll never make money out of this, Dan. Men don't want help. They're not going to come. They're not going to come and work for you. They're too proud."
We said this on the call last week, didn't we? There's not enough of it.
Yeah, and that's the other message I get is that, oh, we really need this, Dan. This is exactly what men need right now. And yeah, I did when again, part of my sort of recovery from burnout and rebuilding my life, I realized it wasn't just me. And also the world has changed quite rapidly in the last, 20, 30 years. And what people expect from men and want from men has changed rapidly. And there's a lot of men kind of left scratching their heads, not really sure what that means for them, if their role's being taken away or somehow changed and that they don't know what it is. And we're all running an old script. We're all living by a 20th century way of being a man, which we needed in the 20th century because we had 2 world wars to fight. So we needed men who could compartmentalize, who could park their emotions and their empathy, who would just keep going no matter what. We needed that. We were fighting for our freedom. We don't need that in the 21st century. We need men to understand who they are, to know themselves, be themselves, and most importantly, to love themselves. Because if you don't love yourself or trust yourself or respect yourself, no other sod's gonna.
It's facts.
That's powerful.
Facts.
That's a powerful.
I mean, I'm not saying I'm not overcome. I do love myself. I do, but I think we have to remind each other.
So you've lied. That's bullshit. If you loved yourself, you wouldn't care what other people thought.
No, I think Dan, me and you could go at this forever, mate. I am a massive I'm a massive people's pleaser.
So you don't love yourself, mate. If you loved yourself, you wouldn't be a people pleaser. You trust yourself and you trust your good intentions. So you're lying to yourself as well. And lying to yourself is stressful. There's a reason we fail lie detector tests, because it elicits a stress response. And
you can't argue with this, can you?
Words, actions aligned, you're lying to yourself and you're lying to everybody else. You're performing a version of yourself. You might love that version of yourself or like that version of yourself, but you're not being yourself. Otherwise, you wouldn't be pleasing people because you'd have no need to.
Do you see that a lot, Dan, in the groups and the sessions that you run, where it's almost a version of someone who thinks that this is what the world wants?
I think that is what he was.
This is what we all do, right? And I did it for years. In fact, there were probably 3 or 4 versions of me, depending on what environment I was in. And I got to a point, like after when I reached burnout, I was like, well, who am I? If I'm not Dan Glyde, BBC Sport, if I'm not Dan Glyde, who lives in Leeds and drives a brand new motor, if I'm, then who am I? What do I really care about? What's really important to me? And that's why I used to be a people pleaser, because I didn't know who I was. And so I could have no expectation about how people would perceive me because I didn't know who I was.
Yeah, I like to be that person that, I'm not saying I do obviously like to be liked and I do like to please people, but I'm a massive believer in, I don't put myself first. Like I will always support a friend who's just lost. I will always support a friend who's just lost someone, or I would be like, let me share that burden. Give it to me. I'll help you, and I'll help you, and I'll help you, and you come and share that as well. And I'm really guilty of kind of never sort of saying it about. I'll absorb it for other people.
Yeah,
I've been like that for a long time.
We feel like we have broad shoulders, don't we? I was exactly like you, and obviously in the work I do, I love helping people. I always have.
Yeah, I'm massively guilty for that.
But these days I pour from a full cup. I put myself first. I make sure I've got full energy. I make sure that I protect my boundaries. I make sure that I have time to myself, that I rest and recuperate and regulate, so that when people do need my help, I'm pouring from a full cup and I'm not half-arsing it.
Yeah, it's really interesting because as you were kind of reeling off like the man box kind of ideology, knowing we've obviously got to know each other quite well over the last 12 months, I'm drawing symmetries with you, I'm drawing symmetries with me, I'm seeing bits of Nick, our MD, I'm seeing bits of Al, I'm seeing bits of everyone in the office kind of all fit, and people I know, friends, family, etc., all kind of fitting into that.
We're all affected by it. It's our culture, right? It's how we've been conditioned. It's how we were brought up. We all have a belief system, whether we like it or not, which is the unconscious system, which creates the lens through which we see the world. It drives our mindset. And mostly it's been programmed when we're children, right? When we don't have the wisdom to discern. We don't question anything.
Dan, we came off the call last week. Sorry, mate. I'm sorry for jumping.
Yeah, no problem.
We came off the call last week, and I think I mentioned it to Alex, and I'm going away going, I did exactly that. My dad, I was fortunate as a child. My mum was at home. My dad was out at work. He worked long hours. Look, we never had everything as kids, but my dad went out and earned the bread, and it's not similar now, because if Anna didn't work, we wouldn't survive. But Anna's obviously part-time. I work full-time. I wanted my own house because my mum and dad had their own house. And you follow, like you say, as a child, you always follow that example that's been set. And I'll be honest with you, I wanted all that. I wanted that. I never heard my mum and dad argue as a child. I don't ever remember that. My brother and sister might say different. I don't think so. And I always wanted that. I wanted that for my kids as well. That solid family unit, and I have massively done that. I've literally, I've been thinking about that for the last week, to be honest with you.
We all do it. We all do it. That's how our society and our culture works. We do. And it's mainly from our parents that our belief system comes, but it also comes from our education, from our religious leaders, if we were brought up in a religion like I was, and from people in authority, that beliefs are just thoughts we've never questioned, and we take on all this stuff and all these things we're supposed to be, and we have a lot of conflict in there, so conflicting beliefs, And one thing we learn as children that's really toxic when we become adults is that we can't trust ourselves, right? So we follow our guidance, inner guidance, as kids do, right? Because they don't have the rules that we've had installed into us. And people tell them, you're wrong for doing that. And we were told that as kids. And we'd have thought, well, hang on, it felt right to me. That felt like the right thing to do. So you walk away from things like that and you get scarred. You get mentally and emotionally scarred. It's traumatic. I'm not talking neglect and abuse trauma, but it's traumatic. It leaves you conflicted and confused. And you walk away feeling like you're not good enough, like there's something wrong with you. And then we live with those beliefs for the rest of our lives. And this is why we put everybody else before ourselves, because we feel like we're not worthy, because that's what we were taught as children. 97% of what we do comes from our unconscious mind. 97%. So it's only 3% that we're making conscious decisions about. And it's these unconscious systems that run our lives. And the belief system is a huge one. And it's why we all end up sabotaging ourselves, and we know what we need to do, but we just don't do it because we have all these conflicting beliefs running in our unconscious mind. And the good news is about that, it's programmable and it's reprogrammable, and we can change that. We can get to know ourselves. We can understand what we really care about, and most importantly, why we really care about it. And then we can wire in the beliefs that support that and empower us to live the way we want to live. Not how society tells us to live, but how we know in our bones is the best way to be, right? And I've learned that the best way to be is to prioritize myself and my well-being. That way, I'm generally always at 100%, and I can help and serve others, and I can do that for a living.
A couple of questions off the back of what you just said then, Dan, is firstly, how do we break that cycle then? This kind of generational, almost environmental, I'm trying to think of the words, conditioning that we've got. So how do we break that? And a couple of other questions I've got is like, we'll come on to is, what does a win look like for you, like in your groups? And have you seen any personal consequences yourself from breaking that cycle and getting from where you were to where you are? But we'll go to the first question on how we break the cycle.
Yeah, so I have a 3-step process, which is what helped rebuild my life, and it's now what I use in my coaching. It's called the power shift method, right? And it's about shifting your attention and intention from the outside world to your inner world, right? Because as I said, 97% of the action we take, the choices we make, the decisions we make come from our unconscious mind. So we've got to put our attention there to figure out what's going on. And the first step in my process is prioritize. So that's understand what you value. And what I've learned is the things that we value are ways of feeling. It's not stuff. So we all think we want a load of money. We want a certain car. We want a certain type of house. We don't. We want the way those things make us feel. So we've got to get really clear and understand what are the feelings we are chasing? What are the ways of feeling that we want? And then most importantly, why? Why do we want that? What does it bring to the world? What does it do for us and other people? Get really clear on that stuff. Not what anybody says you should, have to, and must. What you really care about in your heart. Then we'll need a vision for our future. And again, one that we've decided, not one that's been handed to us, not one where we've copied our parents or anybody else. How do we want to make our mark on the world? What legacy do we want to leave behind? What's our vision? And it's a vision that's got to scare you a bit, right? It's got to feel out of reach, because that's what pulls you forward. Instead of being run by stress and pressure and living up to other people's expectations, come from desire of what you truly and deeply desire to create. So that's prioritize. Step 2 is optimize, right? When you've got really clear on that belief system I talked about, you've got to understand what are the beliefs you hold about yourself and the world that don't marry up with that vision, with your values, and change them, right? Literally change them. Decide, right, I want this as my new belief. I am good enough. And then what you do is you go and find evidence to support that, because the brain and the mind like repetition. That's how you program your unconscious mind, through repetition. And what we now understand, thanks to modern neuroscience, is the brain is elastic. We have neuroplasticity. So we can literally wire in new neural pathways and we create a different reality. We change that lens through which we see the world, and life changes too. And what you start to realize is life doesn't happen to you. You're not a victim of events and circumstances. You're the master of your own destiny. But we all feel like a victim because these unconscious systems run our life and we don't have awareness of it. So get awareness of it, change it. And then the last step is execute. And that's taking deliberate, intentional action. So now you know what your vision is for your future. Now you know what you really care about and why. You've optimized your unconscious systems in order that you can deliver that. Now you take intentional action. So this is doing things because you want to, because you desire them, because you trust yourself and respect yourself enough to follow your drives and desires. What's innate within us, not what somebody programmed into us, not what we're conditioned to do, not what somebody told us we should, we must, we have to, and we ought to do, what we deeply want to do. And that's intentional action. And that's how you wire in the new belief system. That's how you create your new life. That's how I've created the life I live here right now. I envisioned it and then I made it happen.
That's a good answer. That's a good answer, Dan. I mean, I'm conscious about using this phrase, but so obviously when you've established kind of your situation 2018 to where you are now, what would you look back to say? I don't want to say consequences, but what's different from your life then to what it is now? Like, have you had to end friendships? Have you had to cut people off? Have you had to kind of change how you do everything?
Yeah, I have changed how I do everything, and I've changed how I see everything as well. And yeah, there are some people that have probably disappeared from my life because
for the better.
Yeah, because we are the sum of the people we surround ourselves with, right? And I'm not going to surround myself with people who drag me down and judge me and don't like how I live. You know, I do get criticism, I do get haters because, and that's people just projecting their own fear, really.
Is that men haters?
Yeah. Oh, always. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's just. I'll be honest, Dan. I'm bold enough to kind of back what we're trying to do with the podcast and what our mission is with the podcast. There was a tiny shred of me that was just a little bit like the fact that we're homing in on a particular topic on men's health, on what a modern man is, that kind of thing, is what that reaction was going to look like. And then ultimately I thought, no, this is a conversation that needs to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, we're in a very male-dominated industry. Let's not shirk away from that. The stats are the stats. They're in plain sight. And I think it's a really, really important conversation to have, which kind of is a nice segue to my next question, is when you kind of piece all that sort of stuff together and you have your sessions or your coaching and things like that. And I know it's a very broad answer that you could give, Dan, but what does a win look like for you?
Well, for me, the biggest wins are always when somebody else notices the change. So,
what do you mean by someone's? Sorry to jump in, mate. What do you mean by someone? Do you mean the person
somebody
coaching
in the
or
lives of the? So, like recently, there's a guy I've just finished working with. I've worked with him for a year, and this is his busiest time of year. And now he has proper boundaries, and he's able to regulate himself. He schedules in rest, so he's not stressed. And his wife noticed. His wife was like, I can't believe how you are at the moment. You're not losing your shit with the kids. You're not snapping. You're fun to be around still. And you're still got this crazy environment at work. The environment hasn't changed, just how he responds to it. Because he's being himself. And he backs himself and he trusts himself and he has true confidence, not bravado, true confidence. So he doesn't get stressed he doesn't sweat the small stuff anymore. He doesn't get stressed when there's a lot to do because he backs himself to be able to get it done. And he also trusts the other people that he works with when he first came with me, because he didn't trust himself. So how can you trust anyone else if you don't trust yourself? And that's always the biggest win for me is when somebody else notices. But what I really love about the work I do is just allowing men to be themselves, giving them permission, whatever that looks like, right? Whatever that looks like. Because that's the trouble with trying to fit into the man box. Most of us don't fit in it, and some of us not at all. Now, as a man, you can be the type of man that beats the shit out of a tractor tire with a sledgehammer, and then goes home and puts a tutu on and plays fairies with his daughter. Both is okay. We have both masculine and feminine energy within us. Neither's good or bad. They just are. Emotions are human. They're not masculine or feminine. They're human. The humans should feel emotion. And it's particularly important for men that they do. And that because emotions are like the warning lights on the dashboard of your car. They've got a message for you. And that for me, the win with the guys I work with was when they have better self-awareness, they have emotional intelligence, they're leading better at work, they're making more money, and their relationships are better. You know, some of them come to me because they're on the verge of divorce. I've had a couple of guys I work with who literally one of them was like, I'm leaving. And I said, okay, right, let's sit and make a plan for how you can achieve that. 3 months later, he'd bought his dream house, he'd started a side hustle, and his marriage was better than ever because he was in victim mode. He was blaming everybody and everything else. And he came to work with me, and it was tough. He had to take a long, hard look in the mirror. But he realized that he was his own enemy. And by the time he finished working with me, he became his own best friend. And therefore, he became a better person to be around.
Do you get quite tough, Dan? I mean, you just did with me a few minutes ago. I think you've got to get that realization across, haven't you?
Yeah, I'm no bullshit, right? I'm not here to soft soap anybody, right? I'm a really kind and compassionate bloke. So I don't judge anybody. So whatever you come to me with, you're not going to get judged for it. You're not going to get shamed. There's no guilt. But I'm going to kick your ass when it's needed, right? There are times where I put my arm around the people I work with and I'm very empathetic and understanding and I validate how they feel. But most men respond well to having their ass kicked. And that's what I do. I don't mess around. I swear a lot. I'm just normal like they are. I'm not some guru or something like that. I'm just a normal everyday bloke who's found a way of being myself and living intentionally and a process that works. It has at 100% success rate. I've never had a complaint from anybody that's worked with me.
That's really interesting. That's really interesting. What tends, again, this could be an answer that's kind of very, very open. What tends to be like the lifespan of someone that comes to work with you? I don't want to say the word client, but someone who comes to work with you. Can it be anything from like a month, 6 months, for life?
Yeah, it varies. I mean, there are some guys who've come with me and done one 90-minute session, and that's all they needed. They've got out of their own way. They've realised something about themselves. They've done a bit of healing, and then they're off and running. There are some guys who I've been working with for 18 months, and they're still working with me because the work is deep, and they've still got a lot they need to heal, and there's a lot of old patterns that keep coming back, and they need to break those, and then learn about their emotions and their feelings, because that's the other thing. Because of the way we were brought up and the way we were conditioned as men. But, you hear a lot of, we all need to talk more. But it's like, we don't even have the language because it was never given to us. We were never taught that.
You don't know how to start that conversation.
Yeah, so we don't even know what to say. And I one of the things I do in my sessions is I constantly ask blokes how they feel. And most of them struggle to tell me. They can tell me what they think about how they feel, but they can't tell me actually how they feel. They haven't got the language. But yeah, so it depends, Alex. It depends on the level of self-awareness. It depends on where they are, point A, and where they want to get to, point B. Like some guys want to change everything about themselves and the way they live. Some guys just need a little bit of a tweak here and there. So it really does vary. My 3-month program is the most effective thing that I do. So 90 days is enough time to get really deep and to follow those 3 steps and to improve self-awareness to the point where people are then able to go away and implement it for themselves.
It's not a long time, is it?
No.
When you say it like that, 90 days, it's not a long time to reset and go again. It's not a long time.
If you started that now, you'd be done in time for your chocolate eggs at Easter.
You'd be done before the it's 13th, mate, for the awards night. Yeah.
It's interesting you say as well, Dan, just coming back to something you were talking about before on like how how we start that conversation and language that we use. You might not have picked up on this, Paul, but something I've started doing recently is, you're seeing this before, Dan, like when when you're meeting business acquaintances or friends, you'll say, "Oh, how are you doing?" And then you'll go, "Yeah, I'm good. How are you?" And I'll go, "Yeah, I'm cool, thanks." And that's it. It's a very robotic question. It's a very robotic answer. So when people now ask me how I'm doing, I'm generally just to kind of, and I found it actually really works. I give people a number. So I have a 6.5 is just a kind of steady run of the mill. Nothing's gone bad. Nothing's gone great. It's just
You're
steady.
a 7 today.
I was a 7. We went for a carvery. I'm probably now an 8 out of 10. But I've found just by doing that, just by changing that, how I frame that answer back when someone says, "How are you?" I say, "I'm a 7.5 today." I can't describe how I've seen like just a flick in people, and you almost see people not light up, but it engages people more. And I'm finding people are saying, "Oh, I was talking to someone at work today, and they said, oh, I'm a 5 today." And then we got talking about, well, why? Why are you a 5 today? What's wrong? What's troubling you? And it's wild how effective just that little change has been. You'll notice it more now. I do it to everyone who I speak to, who I come across, and it really opens people up. And again, it's kind of going back to what you were saying about language and just kind of understanding kind of what makes people tick and getting people to open up. I mean, I'm no expert by any stretch of the imagination.
No. Ask Anna. She'll tell you. I come home from work, whether it was where I am now, where I worked previously, and she's like, "I was working." It was like, "Yep, fine, great," and then that was it. I never went into the
stock man answer. I'm fine. Yeah, it's fine.
Cool. I'm good.
That is how it has always been, and she will be the first to say, "I always ask him how his day is. I always get the same answer."
Just needs to
because
change.
it's what we hide behind as men. I'm fine because we don't. What you're doing there, Alex, which is really smart, is you're tuning into how you feel. When people ask you that question, you're giving an honest answer. You're stopping for a second. You're going, "Yeah, how am I today? How do I feel?" Because most people don't do that, especially men. That's something I do several times a day, is I ask myself how I feel. I get my attention into my body and out of my head, because that's how we burn all our energy, by procrastinating and turning things over in our head all the time and never switching on. I never ever switched off in my previous life, ever. I just kept going all the time. My mind raced at 100 miles an hour, and it just burned through my energy.
I like the way
I'm a full cut.
I like the way you just said that. Did you click? Not my previous job, my previous life. It's kind of gone. I didn't want that bit of my life.
Yeah.
Now here's me.
But not kind of just deleting it almost.
No, yeah.
Acknowledging
it's very much part of who I am, right? It's what made me. It's why I'm here. And working for BBC Sport was a privilege. It was a superb career. You can imagine, fellas, right? I got to work on Premier League, FA Cup, Wimbledon, Six Nations, Olympics. I've got to work with some of my heroes. I've got to work with Ian Wright, who's one of the most fantastic characters I've ever met.
Absolutely is. Absolutely
amazing. I loved every second of it. It was just the way I was operating and the way I saw myself and saw my work.
Arsenal fan, Dan.
Oh, are you?
I met Mickey Thomas. I used to work for Giorgio Armani. I met Mickey Thomas. He was my idol. You notice how I got that in there?
Yeah.
Mickey Thomas was my idol, and what a great conversation I had with him once. Fantastic.
Yeah, and that's fantastic. See, and I got to work with those sort of people, and it was amazing. But it does feel like a previous life now, because it was an old version of me, one that was a people pleaser and a procrastinator and a perfectionist, and had zero boundaries and did not prioritize myself, my health, and my well-being. And that's, what you're doing there, Alex, is so important. It's so important for us as men to have a real conversation about how we are, not to just say I'm fine and hide behind that. And listen to yourself.
We've spoke, Alex, haven't we, about obviously coming on here today, and you were kind of going, we were nodding when we spoke, Dan, and we were nodding. I told you that little segue of me and driving to the Isle of Wight with the family for the first time going back, and driving on the island after all them years. And obviously my dad's been dead 10 years next year, and I just literally, I don't even know where it came from. No, even just like a train just went woomph, and probably that 4 or 5 years, longer than that, probably 6 years of not really getting emotional about it. Just literally, I just couldn't stop it. I'm driving the car, and the kids are going, "What's wrong with Dad?" And Anna's sat there going, "He's fine," and I'm just like, and that, I'm telling you, I probably wouldn't have said this up until us speaking the other week. It's when you lock things in,
it's not good.
And then when it comes out, it's so powerful. It's ridiculous.
Because it doesn't go anywhere. That's the thing, right? Emotion is energy in motion. They're supposed to flow through you. So when you were grieving, all that emotion that you felt, the sadness, the anger, the bitterness, everything, you needed to feel it fully, and then it needed to come out of you. And it hadn't, right? So when you were there on the Isle of Wight, remembering your old man, it all just poured out of you there.
Yeah, it did. Honestly, absolutely did. It absolutely did, yeah.
Is a healthy thing to do, right? But we were taught as kids, weren't we? Big boys don't cry.
Oh, yeah.
Stiff upper lip, shoulder your burdens, all that crap. And it's so unhealthy. It really is.
Yeah,
Crying
I agree.
Letting go process. I cry a lot now, and I'm happy that I do, because I feel better afterwards. Always feel better. Mostly I cry because I'm happy or because I'm watching something dopey on the telly. But
same. I cried the other week. I was watching Home Alone 2 the other week, and I cried at the end when he meets his mum at the Rockefeller tree.
Oh, did you
I sat watching it with Barney, and I just welled up.
Wow.
It's powerful. It's powerful.
No, it is. And let's say there's nothing wrong with admitting to that, is there?
Yeah, no, absolutely not. So, I mean, given kind of what you do, Dan, and I'm sure you'll kind of see almost rinse and repeat a lot of the people coming through your door, maybe showing the same things. Is there like a typical trait, I'll say a symptom, that you see regularly? Is that, if you could like categorize, this is a top tier thing that I see, and then this is what would that look?
It's the 3 Ps, Alex: perfectionism, procrastination, and people pleasing. These are the things that, and it shows up in slightly different ways. Caring about what other people think, putting other people's needs before your own constantly, waiting for the right time, telling yourself you're fine. I'll be all right when fallacy. When the kids leave home, when I retire, after my next holiday. No, you won't. I'll prioritize myself someday. Yeah, there are 7 days in the week. Someday is not one of them. And all of those 3 things, right? People pleasing, procrastination, perfectionism, are driven by fear. That's what it is. We're scared of being rejected. We're scared of being found out for not being good enough. We're scared of not being liked. And these are all visceral things that really hold us back. And that perfectionism is low self-worth, low self-esteem, not trusting yourself, not respecting yourself. And we all pretend, oh, no, it's because I've got high standards, right? It's not. It's because we're worried about how people perceive us and what other people think about us, because we don't trust ourselves. We don't respect ourselves. Therefore, we need validation and approval from outside. We need other people to tell us we're good enough. We need other people to tell us we're kind and we're generous and we're loving people. Why should we need other people to tell us that if we know ourselves? And so they are the 3 main things, Alex, that I notice. And we're all somewhere on the spectrum of it. So I used to be. 3 of those things really affected my life.
Yeah, I mean, me and Paul are just kind of sat here, kind of just nodding away. I can resonate with, all of what you've just said. From a personal standpoint, if I take a good look at myself, the whole people pleasing, perfectionism, procrastination.
Because you do want to do a good job. I do get. I can't disagree with anything Dan said, and that is what it is. And Dan's going to shout at me because he's going to say you're not being the best of yourself. I do want to set that standard high and do want to please people. And I do like someone saying, fair play to Paul. He puts his all into everything. I do want to hear them things because it drives you to do the next one. But Dan's going to kick me down the road now.
Over to you, Dan.
If you do those things, Paul, you will hear it back, right? But you can trust yourself to do it. You don't need to be thinking about, how's this going to land? What are they going to think of me if I do this or I say that? Or doing things for effect, like doing things in order to get thanks, in order to receive something back, right? You don't need to do that. You're a good guy, Paul. You can trust yourself. You don't need to care what other people think.
Yeah, let's let that one land. Yeah. I want to talk as well.
Thanks, Dan.
I think you've got a client here, Dan. Definitely. Well, you got 2. You got 2 because that's one thing I do want to come on to, Dan. Actually, when we're talking about you got a client here, because you've got the January Reset Challenge.
Yeah.
Just talk to us about that. Because I know we spoke offline today about that, and I am going to join that. But just tell us a little bit about what that is.
Smart move. So I've done a lot of market research this year. So for that mastermind I was telling you about, I want to make it as good as I possibly can. Right? I want to serve the blokes in it really powerfully. So over the last 6 months, I've been sending out people's surveys. I think you completed my survey, didn't you?
I did, yeah.
And just to understand, I know, but just to understand the language people use, how they describe what they're going through, and how it shows up in their life, right? So that way, when I'm talking to people, when I'm marketing what I do, I know how to describe it, because I'm not talking where I'm coming from. I'm talking where they're at. And the two biggest things that came out of that research that men struggle with is overthinking and never being able to switch off. And I resonate with that so much, because that was what used to burn through my energy when I was working at the BBC. I could never switch off, not even on holiday. I'd be taking work calls and answering work emails. I used to struggle to sleep. My mind raced at 100 miles an hour.
I'm laughing, Dan. I'm not laughing at you. I don't know if you can see me, can't you? I'm not laughing at you. Because one of my holidays this year, I got in so much trouble for that. I was just, and this is my director's telling me, put your phone down, put your emails down, what you're doing. Anna, take his phone off him.
Yeah, Paul, get on the January Reset Challenge. So what I've realised is that overthinking and that inability to switch off, again, is driven by fear. It's driven by the fear of being judged, of not being good enough. And that's why we never switch off, right? Because our nervous system is always on. And we believe that stress and pressure is what drives us. So we put pressure on ourselves. And when we put pressure on ourselves, we can't rest. We can't sit still, because we feel guilty. And we always feel like there's 71 jobs to do. And there are always 71 jobs to do, right? But they all need tackling with 100%. And if you don't switch off, if you're constantly overthinking, if it affects your sleep, it's going to ruin your energy. So you can't show up at 100%. It's also going to ruin your relationships, because you're not going to be present. You're going to be stuck up in your head thinking about emails, meetings, deadlines, instead of being there in the moment with your loved ones, with your partner, with your kids, with your mates. I used to be just constantly stuck up here. My wife had a phrase. She'd say, "Oh, you're here, but you're not here." Because I wasn't. I was up there thinking about how I could get ahead in my career, how I could outflank somebody I thought I was in competition with, how I could build the next relationship, the next idea, so I could get something on the telly. And what I've realized now is I've learned to regulate myself, right? So I still am incredibly ambitious and driven. I want to change the world. I want to drive my business forward. I want to serve more men. I want to do more, always. But the best way I can do that is by scheduling in rest and recuperation, and by learning to regulate myself. So all of the unnecessary stress just disappears. If I can stop that fight or flight response kicking in, that fear response that is part of our wiring, it's what's kept us alive for millennia. But we are wired for the Stone Age. When you look at human evolution, modern humanity is a tiny bit of it. So we are wired to roam the plains, to be in tribes, and to not be apex predators. So that fight or flight mechanism is there to stop us getting eaten by cats and bears and wolves, right? These days, we are apex predators. So that wiring isn't actually that much use to us unless we're in imminent danger. And it's very rare these days we're in imminent danger, unless we're all stuck up in our head and we nearly walk out in front of a bus or something on the road. So that fight or flight mechanism, that kicks in the sympathetic nervous system. And that means the blood drains out of what's called the prefrontal cortex, which is the bit of our brain that makes us human. That's where logic and reason and our ability to think critically comes from. So the blood drains out of that in order to sharpen our senses, and it goes to our muscles and our joints, so we can either kick the shit out of something or run away, because that's what we needed to do back in the Stone Age. And so literally stress makes us stupid. We get stressed, that fight or flight kicks in, we can't think straight, we're stupid. That's why we say stupid things in the moment. That's why we do stupid things in the moment when that red mist descends. And far too many of us spend our whole lives in fight or flight mode. So if you can learn to regulate your nervous system, so when you get triggered by an event or a circumstance or something that happens, you can take a few breaths and return to the parasympathetic nervous system, rest and digest, which is the mode we're supposed to be in all of the time, then we can make clear decisions. We can respond instead of react. And we can have much better energy as well as presence, as being able to notice what's happening around us instead of being stuck up in our heads all the time. And we can find that we can sit still and we can prioritize rest and we can recuperate properly. If you look at elite athletes and Hollywood actors and all that, they rest as hard as they train. That's peak performance. They prioritize their well-being. It's their number one priority. So on game day, when it's coming up for the take or the 100-meter race, they are there 100%. They don't overthink things. They're not stuck up in their head, burning their energy. They're present in the moment and ready to give everything when it's required.
Fair.
Oh, so you asked me about the reset, and I didn't tell you what it is. So it's a 6-week challenge, right? it's no time, effort, energy, money commitment. Like there's still a couple of places left for a tenner. It's only 20 quid, the full price. And what you'll get is a video from me every week and a habit tweak. And you'll learn over those 6 weeks how to regulate yourself, how to make sure you're not in fight or flight mode. And therefore, resting doesn't feel like danger because you're sat there going, oh, I've got this to do, I've got that to do. You can recuperate without feeling guilty. You can learn how to regulate yourself. So when you do get triggered, fight or flight doesn't kick in and you get to take a beat and then respond instead of react, right? Because responsibility is our ability to respond. Most of us are reactive. We're emotionally reactive. Something happens, we react. And normally what that means is we're applying the past to the present moment because our brains are wired to be efficient. So our brain goes, I know what this is. It's happened before. This is what we do. Boom. And it means we miss what's really happening in front of us and we react instead of respond. And if we have personal responsibility, we respond, right? We take a moment. We go, oh, right. This is what's happening. Here's how I want to respond. Here's a choice, a deliberate and intentional response, rather than an old way of being coming to the party, because that's not useful. So that's what you get from the reset challenge.
You'll have to send me the link, Dan.
Well, I'll send you it because I'm going to be signing up.
Yeah, getting quick, fellas. There's only a couple of spots left.
Well, that'll be ours then.
Yeah, do you know what? It'd be really interesting, Dan, if you game that me and Paul sign up for this, and then we maybe you come back on in February when we've got another recording, and we kind of pick the bones of that.
Yeah, I'd love to.
It'd be really good. A couple of guinea pigs for you.
That'd be...
But no, I mean, we said this off the back of our last call.
Nick will tell me he'll regret it.
Yeah. I kind of said that this would feel a bit like a mini therapy session, and in a sense it has, because a lot of the stuff that you've said has resonated.
But it will with the viewers as well, and the frontline officers that are there that can actually go, he's right. Yeah,
and I think as well, one of the things that's really important for me about this episode is obviously we have a male-dominated industry, but this is an episode for women as much as it is for men, because our colleagues in the office who are women or out on the front line have men in their life who I'm sure will think, oh my God, that's my brother, that's my husband, that's my partner, whoever. So really important messages in and amongst that. One final thing I want to touch on, Dan, before we wrap up, is kind of like the consequences, I suppose, of not breaking the cycle. I did a little bit of research before, because you know what, let's talk about it. And men's suicide is it's frightening. So 75% of suicides in the UK are men. It's an average of 14 a day. The age range that it was telling me was the highest risk was age 50 to 54, which I think there's we've got quite a high proportion of our workers at that sort of age. Not saying that I sincerely hope that a lot of our workers are at risk of suicide, but it's an important age demographic to touch on, and probably come from a generation kind of just maybe beyond ourselves, where it was maybe even more so worse the condition, not worse, well, yeah, worse the conditioning of how to behave, how to act. So yeah, I just kind of wanted to finish on that there is help out there. There is ways in which we can break the cycle. There are ways in which we can make a better life.
Can I ask a tough question, Dan? Have any of your clients or anything, have you've never heard of anything that they've took their own lives or anything like that?
There's a few of them that have had what's called suicidal ideation, so it's crossed their mind. There's a guy who's just come into my world now. He's just joined my mastermind, and he's just finished. He was working for, or he was a volunteer for Andy's Man Club, because Andy's Man Club saved his life. He was going to commit suicide. Oh no, sorry, that's the wrong language. He was thinking of taking his own life. And yeah, there's a client I'm working with now who's a recovering alcoholic and cocaine addict, and what woke him up and made him stop and start recovering was he felt like he wanted to take his own life as well. So yeah, it's definitely something I see. And yeah, that's definitely one of the consequences, Alex. It definitely is. If you're not being yourself, you'll be using, what men do is they numb out, right? They use drugs, booze, porn, gambling, working too much, all those things in order to numb out, because they're out of integrity, they're not being themselves, and they don't like the way that feels. Now, the probably the least harmful consequence is burnout, like I had, and that was really poor physical and mental health. Failed relationships is definitely one. You end up divorced. What a lot of blokes do, because they numb out and they built all these walls up so they don't feel anything, is they blow their life up in order that they do feel something. So they have affairs, or they spend all their money on stupid cars and motorbikes that don't really want or need. The other one is heart health, is heart conditions. Stress, it ruins our circulatory system, and it causes heart problems. And outside of suicide, the other biggest killer of men is cardiovascular disease, and that's all lifestyle. Well, I say it's all, some of it's genetic, but it's mainly lifestyle driven.
Yeah.
And the consequences are that we'll get steadily more and more unwell. And a lot of blokes who I talk to who don't come and work with me, who fall for the "I'll be all right when" fallacy. Oh no, Dan, it's not about how I feel, it's about getting shit done. They're saving, they're really good with their money, and they've got a lot ready for their retirement. They might not be able to enjoy it in their retirement. If they have a heart attack, or they end up divorced and on their own, they'll end up miserable old gits with a lot of money and no happiness and no fulfillment and no meaning and no purpose in their lives. And they're the things that we all really craving as human beings.
Absolutely.
So they're the consequences, Alex.
Absolutely. So just to wrap up, Dan, should someone be watching this that's kind of piqued their interest, how can they get in touch with yourself?
So LinkedIn is the best place to find me. That's where I'm most active. So that's where I connected with you, wasn't it, Alex? So that's a good place. I have a website, which is danglidecoach.co.uk. My email address is danglidecoach@gmail.com. So they're the best ways to get in touch with me. I have a free WhatsApp group. So it's free to join my community, and it's full of good men who want to be better and somewhere on that journey, and we help and we support each other. There's no bullshit, there's no bravado, there's no cock waving, there's no flexing, there's no mine's better than yours, I'm faster than you, I'm higher up in the hierarchy than you. It's just real, raw and honest conversation, right? We're all just being ourselves. We're being real.
Chuck myself in that WhatsApp group.
Yeah,
not hiding behind the "I'm fine," which, like as we mentioned earlier, which so many men do. Oh, I'm fine, I'll be all right when. That's just bullshit. Stop lying to yourself. So yeah, that's how you can find me. And as I say, my community is free to join. There's the mastermind, and for a select few, I do one-on-one coaching. The vast majority of men are not ready for it.
Fair. I mean, we'll overlay some of the graphics over of your website and your LinkedIn page, and we'll drop the links into the description of the audio and the video podcast. I think that's a nice place to wrap up. But Dan, just a huge thank you for coming on. I mean, we had the call last week, and I had a good feeling about this episode. And I think
I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed it. Yeah.
I think it's a
Good.
really important message that we need to get out there, and we need to condition society to be okay to talk
Yeah.
about this kind of stuff. So thank you for helping us along the way. And hopefully we'll get you back on for a recording in February, and we can talk about our January resets.
Yeah, that sounds like a brilliant idea. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for inviting me on, chaps. I've really enjoyed it.
No, Dan, I personally as well, I have, mate, and I knew I would, and I hope the viewers do. But yeah, thanks for me, mate. Have a great Christmas and a fantastic New Year. Honestly, mate, thank you very much.
Yeah, likewise.
Send me
really
that
good
link.
to
One
see
of you send me that link.
We'll do. And we'll
Get me on LinkedIn, Dan. Steal me.
fade him out, Tyler. We'll wrap up there.